60 to story.
62 story. Okay. Welcome back. This is the 60 to story episode. So, first on the list, we're going to discuss how to write a story in 60 days. It is discovering what you already contain, meaning we all have a story. I believe everyone has a story for a purpose. I believe the key to truly making a difference in this world is telling that story. Our stories are how we relay our experiences to each other. You can evolve from someone who randomly remembers bits of life to someone who intentionally turns them into a story that serves, a tangible tool you can use to share and encourage others. This can be your legacy. So, we are going to dig a deep dive into the 5 steps in how to write your memoir, your story. So, the first one will be mindset. We're going to do mindset, we're going to do routine, content, revolution, and breadcrumbs. The first one on the list, mindset. Turn these pages. So, creating a story worth telling starts with your mindset. I've got 5 principles that will take the mundane memories into the language of stories. First, you need to mentally commit. You have time for what you want. I truly believe this. This project is important. Make it important. Commit to finishing. Remember, time is precious, so we waste it wisely. Scrolling on your social media, commit to setting a scrolling on social media.
Scrolling on social media wastes time.
Yes. Commit to setting a timer. That's tip number 2. And then think about this. Think about in the day when there were traveling storytellers. Imagine the rapport between the teller and the listener. The stories told around a campfire or in a library at story time. This is where the magic happens. The storytellers are where it's at. When we write our stories, what?
I was just going to say, I think about when my grandparents would tell their story, and we'd all sit around and listen to them, and that they could make it just come alive, and we could remember, or we could hear their story just come alive as they tell it. And as back in the day when you had radio only, people were telling stories and you were listening. And I think there's a big value in that we have gotten away from.
Yeah, it's magical. It really is. When we write, we gradually start seeing details of our life. Allow this to happen as you go through this storytelling process. As your collection grows, you will increasingly visualize your story. Imagine how this will lead the generations behind you. Imagine how it would have helped you if you read a story like this before your struggles. How encouraging it would have been to know someone can relate. I believe your story holds a link between you and humanity.
When I was going through this, Crystal, I wrote a note in there that I would have loved to have read my mom's story. So she's passed on. She's been gone for 25 years, 27 years now. And I would have loved to have a story that she had written to look back on and have her come back to life for me each time I read it. I just thought about that.
When I did this project, and I did this several months ago, my mom went through it and she finished hers. Actually, I bought her a gift a few years ago that was storytelling, and they would email her weekly a question and she would answer it. And at the end of the year, you got this hard copy book. And that, excuse me.
Oh, bless you.
That's what prompted me to create a way for it to be a little more intimate, because it was just more chronological parts of your life. And I wanted a way to do more of the storytelling. But I learned things about her that I would never have thought to ask.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting to me. Like right now, she has a rock in her garden that came from her grandma's rock wall around her house that I had no idea.
You didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just things about us that we don't share because we don't think it's important, but It really is. All the things that we go
That
through.
we don't have a lot of time. That's what
No,
I
that's
found
true too.
through this
Hmm.
process. When I'm with my mom, like we are right here, right now. We're not talking about, I don't know, just random pieces of our memory. I mean,
Hmm.
we're into creating current memories for the
Yeah.
kids, grandkids, or whatever. That's what I
Hmm.
thought of when I first started this. We just don't take the time to really go back. So that's what that's how this was born. So back to mindset.
Autobiographies.
Yes. So the difference between an autobiography and an autobiographical storytelling is one is chronological, what we were just talking about, and one is focusing on how your story can serve, which is the purpose of this podcast and this PDF and this whole conversation is how to use your story to serve, be it generations, be it legacy. I think of like when we had Jennifer on with breast cancer, I think her story could help other people at the beginning of that journey just to
Hmm.
know a little bit of what to expect or know that someone else has gone through it. Like these are all ways that our story can serve. They
Hmm.
help the people around us.
Hmm.
Community, however big or small you want that to be, and I think that is lost these days. I think sharing and talking about it and try in a way that is to help and serve is it's a lost art.
Hmm. Yeah. We aren't sharing as much. We share a lot of each other, of ourselves on Facebook and Instagram, but it's all little short snippets. It's not the real story. We share the best part of every day.
The highlight reel. Yeah.
Yes, a highlight reel, and
It's not
that's not real. That's not, the highlight reel is not real.
right. Not with the purpose to
Yeah.
serve someone. So, if someone listening does not think that they have value to share, let me ask you this question. How did you handle 2020? What did you discover about yourself during that time? What did you wish you knew? What did you learn? What skill did you take on? 2020 was literally live history in the making. So you can't tell me that you don't have a story. So this is how you create your legacy. That's it. That's the mindset part. So I've already done this and have written a memoir, which is how this podcast was born. But Sandy, you just started going through this process. How the mindset part? Do you think we need to add anything, or do you think that's good? What do you think? What are you thinking? Did that help you get in the correct mindset to start your
It
story?
totally did. It totally helped me kind of focus. And I when you originally talked to me about it, I thought it was a story about my life, like my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm seeing this
That can
is,
be overwhelming.
yeah, and I'm seeing that this is an opportunity to share a portion of your life, like some event that happened or some portion of your life that um, was meaningful, or a big piece of your life to share. And that made it easier to just like, okay, I'm going to focus on that little area. And I
Yeah,
had a couple.
the fat because your whole life that's a big task.
It's too much. It's
That's
too
why
much.
ghostwriters.
Well, maybe if you're 5, it's pretty easy, but when you're like 55,
And I
it's
also believe to my core that the reason we go through those things is to share and help
I
someone
believe
else.
so too. I believe so
So if
too. And
we
it's
don't get that while our memory is good, get that down in writing,
yeah, and
then
it
stop
is
for.
funny because I went through 9 years of infertility, and I often wonder. And I knew at the time that God was going to use that at some point for to benefit others, and to so I could share my story and be of help to someone else that was going through it. And I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for that time to happen. It just never seemed to be there. It was like nobody I ran into had struggled with that. And it wasn't until,
Well, they didn't talk about it. I think that was a lot of it too. The
yeah,
probably
and that could be too, but yeah, so I think that our stories, all of it is for a purpose. I mean, all things will be used for a purpose, and they all can be used for a purpose. And like Crystal said, we all do have a story to share. Every single one of us have been through things that can help other people. So yeah, it's really good to share your story. Write it down. Write it down for, and it may not, it might not be while you're alive. It might be when you're gone. Your child or your grandchild might need to hear your story of what you went through.
That's the legacy part.
Yeah, we just don't know. But for you to write it down, it will be used. It will be used. I mean, look at Anne Frank. Did she know? She was.
I don't think any of them knew. That's
Yeah,
usually what happens is you
yeah,
tell
yeah.
them that's, but I
So the
know
next,
that I don't, for me, selfishly, I don't want to do all this hard work and then not have any kind of documentation for my children for years to come. I mean, you know what I mean? Just to look back
yeah,
and think, oh yeah, remember when Mom made cookies every Friday night? That,
yeah.
I mean,
So
I
she
don't
made
do all
cookies,
that
but she
just
did some
because
other stuff.
I don't do any of that stuff because I just think it's funny. I mean, I do all that stuff so that I'm remembered
Hmm.
by them, not I
Hmm.
don't care about anyone
Hmm.
else. I just want the kids to remember me.
Hmm.
Talk about me like we talk about our parents and our grandparents.
Right, right.
They're it's
So the
lost.
first one was getting your mindset together and getting your focus down. Is that kind of like where you were at? You focus in on what part of your story you want to share.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, Crystal talks about um, in her workbook is routine. So mastering your personal narrative starts with a solid routine. I know that for myself, I can't get anything done unless I do have a routine. Um, the only two ways I can do things is if I start something and let it go, I don't usually get back to it. If I have a routine and go to it, I'll if I make a habit of it, I will do it. Otherwise, I have to cram. In high school, I was just a crammer. In college, I was a crammer. I procrastinate. I mean, that's my thing. I'm a terrible procrastinator.
Me
So
too.
to have a workbook that I'm working through and you can check off and go set yourself up. Just be consistent with your time. Pick a day of the week that works for you. If it's a Monday or a Wednesday or a Friday, whatever day that is, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever your time permits. Focus on that time and just set that time aside. I love to,
Because
um,
this isn't it's if you start it, it should be important to you.
yes,
So you need to treat it as such.
yes, make it it is important. It is important for you to share your story, for you to have it for the people behind you, the people next to you. Um, and also we talked about this too is writing it down necessarily isn't just necessarily for others, it's also for yourself, right? It's helping you to process your
I think
emotions. And
that's one of the, let me see, because I've got this workbook.
is
I
that
think
down later?
somewhere in there.
Okay, but anyways, we'll touch on that a little bit later. But
For sure, it is. It's very
again,
important.
setting a day of the week will help you to stay on target, and setting a timer. That I didn't even think about this before, but just setting a phone timer saying, I'm going to work on this for 20 minutes and just doing that and being intentional on that was really helpful for me. And rewarding yourself if you get through and you do it each week. You set up to do it on Wednesday, and I'm going to do it for 20 minutes on Wednesday afternoon, and you do it. Reward yourself for it. And it is pumpkin
Oh, why
season,
not?
so I love pumpkin anything. I love pumpkin lattes. I love pumpkin. Now do you know what I love? Pumpkin seltzers. They have pumpkin hard seltzers. Yes, they do. So
I'll have to try.
that's a nit
I like
evening.
pumpkin beer, so that would be
No, but
interesting.
this seltzer is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good. But anyway, so thinking about the story and how much content we need and how many words. So Crystal was saying that we need a lot of words. So commit to. She said we need 40,000 words.
If
So
you
to
wanted to
me, I was
publish,
like 40,000 words. What? How can I even do that? I don't even know.
if you wanted to publish your memoir or your story, You need at least 40,000 words for them to even look at it. I mean, I
Okay.
say that, I don't know, I'm not an editor, but I do know if you want to submit it to a publisher, you gotta have some substance there. So the goal would be 40,000. You
Yeah.
don't have to.
No.
If you don't want to publish it, you don't have to do that.
Yeah. And I
You're like,
think on Word, I haven't found it yet, but I think that there's a way to measure your words. So make a goal. The bottom line is make a goal. Say, I'm going to do, 500 words in 20 minutes, and you do your 500 words or 1,500 words or 5,000 words or whatever you decide.
This part is set up to get it done in 60 days, which was my original goal when I created this. So that you can just totally kneel and void that if you needed to, if you felt like it.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to publish it and you want to do it in 60 days, this is what you got to do. You got to do the 40,000 3 times a week, 3 hours a week. What does it say? 3 hours.
3 hours a week and 5,000 words 1,500 words a day, I think is what it was. So, but anyways, bottom line is just be intentional about getting it done. It is important. It's important to you. It's important to your family. It's important to others to share your story because it's valuable. It's valuable.
Yeah. There's a quote, and I've actually put it in this workbook because it's one of my favorites by Maya Angelou, and it says, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you."
Mm-hmm.
Is one of my favorites.
Because how do you help others if you don't share your story? How does your pain or your suffering or what you went through, what accomplishments you made, how does that help others if you don't share?
Exactly. That right there is the meat of the whole point of this. You're exactly right. So once you've got your mindset and you've got your routine down, now you're gonna figure out your content. So here we break it down. We're breaking down mountains of content in our brain, which we all have, and that can be overwhelming. So I created 5 steps to help you outline this, to streamline that a little bit for you. So one is choose a season of your life that you do think would be impactful for someone else. So one that the message to convey is relatable or entertaining, but just one. Think of one season.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Not your whole life, but just one portion of it. And this is where I picked 2 and then I settled on 1. So that was huge for me.
And you can go back, when you finish this, go back and do that
Yeah.
do the other season.
Yeah, true.
Add it, have a series.
Yeah. I could have a series. The life of Sandy Malarkey. Yeah. Book 1, book 2. How many books do you want?
You want to write. So now with this theme in mind, now you want to create an elevator pitch style sentence. This is your focal point if you start going down a rabbit hole. And this is what helped me when I wrote mine. So this is like, if you listened to the Power Word episode, this is kind of like that. It's that touchstone of what's your end goal here with this story, with this theme that you've decided on. Now put all of that in one sentence and write that down.
What was yours? Did you have it? Do you have it down there?
I think I just read it to you earlier. This isn't my divorce story. This is my parenting story.
Nice. Mine was.
I don't.
What? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say so that you don't go down rabbit holes because you can really kind of get off on. You gotta stay in your lane, which is hard when your brain starts going. Man, when you get in that zone, I don't know if you're like that, but once I get going, you can really
go off on tangents. Yeah.
What was yours?
Mine was every dark place has a pivot point where we start to see the light. So mine was, my whole story is about my journey to parenthood because it was infertility. So
will that sentence help remind you of that if you go off? It will. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Because that was a dark time.
It was a dark time, but then
The light came.
the light came. Yes.
So the second piece of your content section, if you still need an idea, there are some creative tips in here. You think of a life you didn't see coming. That's a time of your life you didn't see coming, and how that made you feel, and reflect on how that changed. That is just a tip if you're still looking for ideas. I find that once people start thinking, it's not hard for them to come up with ideas or think of a time. People really like to talk about themselves, really.
Well, we like to reminisce. I mean, people like to go back. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And
But
really,
if this podcast has taught me anything, it's that people like to talk.
Yeah. And what more interest do you have than your own life?
So I've not met anyone yet that couldn't come up with something to write about.
Yeah.
But if you do, there's some tips in there.
And then how that's changed your life. How about how your life has changed because of it?
Mm-hmm. And just a quick little tidbit, fun fact for you: 80% of people think that they have a book in them, but they don't have the courage or the guts to do anything about it. So just getting to this point in this workbook, you're in the 80. I mean, you're in the 30%. You're already in another level. That's encouraging to me.
Yep.
You're already doing more than the majority of people are doing. Just writing
Just do it. Just do it, people.
Just do it.
Just do it.
All the words, all the things.
What's it gonna lose? What can you lose? And you can gain a whole lot.
Right? Okay, so next, do you want to go through the next part of the content?
The middle?
Yes.
Oh, conflict time. It doesn't have to be negative. It just has to be a time when. Oh, no, not that.
Okay, you're correct. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. We're working through Crystal's workbook with you. So the middle part of the content is the conflict time. It doesn't have to be a negative. It just has to be a time when one of your characters disagrees or takes a stand in your story. This can be when you are facing or for or against something. This can be a spiritual journey or surviving something. The problem your story solves. So explain a little bit more about that, Crystal.
Well, the first part of the content part of the workbook was to how to get your beginning, and then this would be the middle part. So if you were going the publishing route, you would need a character in your story at this point to have a conflict. It's like the climax of the story. If you're reading a book or watching a movie, that's the middle.
Or a conflict, not necessarily a person, but a conflict, some problem that is occurring. So you're building up to it, and now you're saying, what is the problem? What's going on, really? What's the real stresses, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And then you're in. So essentially, all good storytellers will tell you that a good story has the situation, which is your beginning, your story, which is the middle, that's the meat of it, and then the end, which is where the wisdom comes in, what you learned from it or how you changed or what
the outcome was.
That would be the end of it. So that is where your conflict situation resolves. So you need to figure out how you're gonna you got to figure out how you're gonna land this plane. So
I love how you said situation plus story equals wisdom. I think that was really good because through every story and situation, we gain wisdom.
I have a tattoo on my back it's shoulder blade to shoulder blade, and it says, "When feathers fall, gypsies." I'd have to look at it. But
you don't see it very often, do you?
It's when feathers fall, gypsies roam. It's either gypsies roam and angels tread, or gypsies tread and angels roam. I can't remember, but it's those two. It's gypsies and angels roam and tread when feathers fall. And the meaning is it's the difference between experience and knowledge. So they're both very valuable, but you learn very differently. And that came from after my divorce. So I gained a lot of experience, but not so much. Not so much in the, in the other area. Different parts of your life bring out different parts of you. So the difference between experience and knowledge is a real thing.
Your conflict may live in a space. Oh, your conflict may live in this space. So talk about brain dump. So you talk about brain dump. Brain dump time. What is brain dump?
That is when you start this process and you start thinking about all the ideas and all the topics and all the things, you just write them all down. It's just an exercise to get it out of your head and onto paper.
Okay.
Because it helps you, if you've ever done that process, which I do that actually a lot just daily, because I have a lot going through that I want to get done, I need to get done, so I'll just write everything down. And what happens during this process, which is kind of, it's very interesting to me, it almost organizes it for you. So when you get it out, or me anyway, you get it out, you get it on paper, and then you kind of see what is a priority, what really doesn't really have to be done, or isn't really important, or you thought that was important, but it's not. There's something happens during that process that helps organize it.
You're able to actually process it through writing, and as you do that, you can take parts out and highlight other parts.
But there's no rhyme or reason. The point of brain dump is just like as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Just writing everything that comes to your head. Yeah.
But it is funny how, as you do that, your brain processes as you're writing.
Categorizing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Our brains are amazing, aren't they? It's crazy.
They are. So they constantly are going forward and backward, really. Every 3 seconds, I think they say, you're either going forwards or backwards. You're thinking about something you did or thinking about something you want to do constantly.
Okay.
So there's something when you do that it like gets it categorized and how it needs to be done, or what, I don't know.
I was talking to Crystal earlier about this, and I think what was as I started looking into this, what was freeing for me was knowing that I wasn't going to publish mine. Mine was going to be personal for my family, my friends, for my personal use. So I was able to write it in a way that just represented me, so I could just write freely. If I was to write it as I was going to publish it, I would write it differently. So depending on your goals, if it's something that's just for personal growth or personal sharing, then you can just write it down and just be free to just write whatever you want. Also, when you want to publish it, if you're going to publish it, again, like a brain dump, you can just write everything down like you would, and then you can go back and make your edits as you would need to think of it as another reader. But
you could also go ahead and do it your way, where it's for family, and then maybe go to publish it later and keep your version as kind of a VIP.
Yeah. Right. True. Yes.
Behind the curtains.
Behind the curtains for your eyes only. Family eyes only. But yes, a family version and a public version. Yes. Yeah.
PC and then
let's
see what this last page is. It's just join the movement of storytelling.
Yeah.
Which is revolutionary. I truly, truly believe that stories are very powerful. They're teaching tools. They entertain us, and they make us. We're all different for a reason. There's a reason we're all here, and we're all different.
That's right. Everybody's unique, and everybody's story is unique, and everybody is valuable. Everybody has something to share. We're not going to say that enough. And I truly believe that. Crystal truly believes that. That's why we're doing this podcast, is every single one of you is unique and special and here for a purpose.
The last part of this, the last step, are what I call breadcrumbs. And this is, think of a mental paper trail. this is when I talk about the Friday night cookie night and things like that. That is my mental paper trail. Like I'm leading my people to it's the narrative that you want. So you're leading them. You're kind of going into this direction that you want to be remembered or thought of or whatever. So breadcrumbs, if you think on your day-to-day life, maybe I want to write another story or I want to do something, but this is the end goal that I want to have. Well, you can right now start doing things to kind of get you to that point so that you can write about it. You can say, you know what, I wanted to own a boat one day, so I started doing these little things. And then you write a book about how you got a boat. I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be. I think we overthink a lot. It doesn't have to be serious. People love to just know how you got a boat. How are you I'm ordained. You see this certificate behind me? There's a whole story of why I'm ordained and I could marry people. I mean, this is a whole thing, and I could write a story about that, and that is entertaining to me.
So are you saying breadcrumbs are kind of like goals or things that you want to do in the future?
They can be goals. They can be the mom that you want to be. What can you do today to make that happen?
The breadcrumbs are the little pieces that you're going to do on your way to the goal?
Yes.
Okay.
And that doesn't have to be serious, but mine is always has
But
to do
little
with
steps. Breadcrumbs are small steps towards your end goal.
Yeah, that you're intentionally doing so that later you can share it, talk about it. Like this podcast.
Or do it.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Let me see. I'm trying to see these notes.
Yeah, so the breadcrumbs for this podcast were, go ahead and share.
My story, I did this workbook to create my own story, but I also wanted to help other people create theirs. That turned into me writing chapters and chapters of pieces of that season of life that then it just kind of evolved into an outline for a podcast that I was not thinking about a podcast at the time, but I just thought this would just be a better podcast than a book, than a story. Because some of these things are just better to talk
through.
So that's where that went. I mean, I started writing it, and I did it with the intention of having it for the kids, so there are things that happened during that time of life that they still don't know about that I wanted to share. So that's where it started. But I created it in a way with this PDF so that I could help other people do that also. And then when I got done, when I looked at these hot pink notebook pages, and I did bright colors on purpose, that would remind me. I try to color coordinate when I'm working on different projects at a time. So when I glance in my binder, I know that's for this is for this, whatever I'm working on. So when I looked at all these pages, front, back, notebook paper, I realized it was an outline for podcast.
And so now here we are, 26 episodes later.
I said, hey, do you want to do a podcast with me? And by the way, I have the first 18 episodes done, or topics. And you were like, let me pray about that.
And on paper, on outline, it seemed super simple, and we'll just get this done. We'll just do that. It took some work, but we did it, and we've had a blast doing it.
Oh, it's been, and the podcast is actually very therapeutic.
Yes.
I said this before. I know I've said it before, but talking about some of these things and talking them out loud and talking them to a friend, it's almost like you guys aren't here. It's just us.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just talking, and it's there for each other, and it does a lot for us. I am so blessed after every Wednesday night. I go to work on Thursday morning just filled up.
Filled up. Maybe a little dehydrated, but filled up.
Maybe.
Well,
So we're
that
just
was,
encouraging you to write your story.
yeah, it is.
Where can they find this? We're going to have this link to this workbook on our website. And where else can we find this, Crystal?
Yeah, I'll link the website in the show notes, but it's a PDF you can download, and you know, interactive. You just answer these questions, write it out, and then you just, I mean, it's as simple as possible, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it as difficult as you want, but the outline is there, and all you've got to do is just fill it out and then start writing.
Kind of fill in the blanks and yeah, start writing. So it was actually super helpful for me to get going. And um, Crystal is very talented on graphics, so there's a lot of fun graphics in there. And this was she didn't do her own. Now she's doing her own uh, lettering.
Yeah.
Yes, she's doing that by hand herself, and she's doing a lot of that. That's been fun to watch her evolve.
That's a big goal of mine, is to get all of these transformed into my handwriting, but that would take.
That's a long time. That's a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah.
But for now, it's available, and I don't know how many pages it is. You wrote them down. How many did you get?
I didn't
Did
get
you
that
write
far
them down?
through.
No.
I stopped because I was on track, but it's probably about 15 pages.
10, 15 pages, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's color coded.
Yes, and it's beautiful. It's
Literally
good
easiest
job, Crystal.
thing to do. So it's called
Helping everybody get their story out.
60 to Story, and it is telling your story for a purpose. So we appreciate everyone. This was so fun discussing this, and I hope everyone has a good evening.
Until next time, friends. Cheers.